Welcome to Mystic Revolution. Here we are again, season 5, and up to 54 episodes. In this episode, we will continue to talk about spiritual bypassing, and we'll get into just doing the work around that. So before we do that, let's do a brief meditation just to get here and get settled. So go ahead and close your eyes. And just let yourself take a nice deep breath in and out. Go ahead and do that again. Breathing in and breathing out. You can continue to breathe, just breathing into your heart, breathing into your core, allowing your breath to rise and fall. And just for a moment, allow yourself to just be with the miracle of your body breathing. The miracle of your body breathing. And we can direct our breath, of course, into the heart space. You can direct it up into your head space to help clear the head. Let's do that real quick. Breathing up into your head space and exhaling out anything that isn't serving you. You can breathe into your root. And on the exhale, just put down a brand new grounding cord. All the way down to the center of the earth. You can even breathe down into the depths of your grounding cord, breathing all the way down. And exhaling out. Just another way to connect with earth energy. And as you let that earth energy come into your body, you can breathe up into the realm of the divine, breathing in divine source energy, exhaling anything that doesn't align with that, breathing in the energy of the vast sky, bringing that expansiveness into our head and into our heart, into our whole body. Just continue to breathe. And then let your breath become just automatic. We can set our intention for our breath as well. So allow it to connect you into your heart, deep into the earth, into the vastness of the divine. And as you feel ready, you can join us for a conversation. You can open your eyes or keep them closed, whatever you like. But here we are with Wendy, and we're talking more about spiritual bypassing.
Yeah. There's one story I wanted to tell that I feel like it gets the finger on the issue. And the issue, I think, is, are we actually doing the work? Are we actually doing something in our own souls? Or are we thinking about it, talking about it, reading about it, writing about it, doing rituals with no substance? Are we what are we just doing it with our human self, or are we opening to some kind of spiritual something and allowing
Yeah.
that to shift our souls in a new way? And this is why I really like, I don't like to put a lot of meditations out there, and because people, and what I did when I first listened to my spiritual teacher, I was driving along the road listening and being like, this is stupid, this is nothing, because I was just listening, like as if it was an academic experience,
Yeah.
instead of a experience in my soul.
Yeah.
And my teacher was awesome, right? But I wasn't getting it. And so it's just important to get that. So here's one of my stories about it that I think is important. I'd been really ill for really long. And a friend of mine who was into this weird new age stuff, he said, look, I know a couple psychic healers. I'm going to buy you a reading. I was just like, he just did it. Like I didn't have a choice. So, and they sent me this transcript. They did it like without me. They sent me this transcript, and it was like the only thing that was my takeaway, really, honestly, it was, I don't know, 23 years ago or something, 22, something like that, was they said, you aren't as spiritual as you think you are. And I was like, I felt, it didn't feel good to hear that. It was like I was doing all the things. I was doing spiritual reading, spiritual writing, spiritual praying, I was doing like, I was constantly talking about it, constantly doing it in my world. But it was more, honestly, looking back, it was more religious. It was more just doing stuff than it was actual soul stuff.
Yeah.
And they were absolutely right. Like once I started doing this practice, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah. I completely understand that. And well, I'll just say I feel like our culture or just modern living in general, right, trains us to be in our headspace, right? Being
Mhm.
hyper analytical about things, and being analytical about things can be brilliant and super
Yes.
useful.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Love it.
And um, being hyper academic or analytical can, not always, but can undermine the spiritual experience. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, I just remember some spaces and places probably where I was being too much in my analytical brain, or maybe the presenter or leader was also, but where like rattling off names of different deities or ascended masters um in a way that felt very methodical in my mind, I wasn't getting it. I was like, this is too much. Like I
Right.
don't get it. um and we can, there may be a variety of reasons why I had that experience, but I also know that I hadn't had a fully embodied connection.
Yes.
And getting connected to the body in this experience really made a huge difference.
And these are the two parts I think that are so important. There's the, can we go just from like being what quote in our head, just in intellectualizing
Mm-hmm.
and academic, what could be written in books?
Mm-hmm.
That's all intellectual. If it goes into words, which goes into books, just be to be clear, it can be about mysticism, but it's about it, it's not is it.
Mm-hmm.
It can be about spirit, but it's about spirit, not is spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like all spirit, fine. But to have the distinctions. So that's one. Is it soul or below everyday consciousness, or is it everyday consciousness?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one part. And then say that's the first part of spiritual bypassing, as far as I'm concerned, is not actually doing the soul stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but just rearranging deck chairs on the intellect or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And then, so that's the first one. But the second one is we are having spiritual experience. We
Yeah.
are in our soul, and we more or less have these extraordinary experiences, and our soul can be iterating, and we can be even uh, important lights in the world,
Yeah.
but it's cut off from some or all of the body, some or all of the trauma, some or all of the um of some of ourselves. So that's the second kind. Again, when I was looking at this, like the first kind is we don't go into the soul, but the second kind is that we don't bring spirit into all of our soul, all of our body, all of our life, all of our relationships, all of our world. And of course, that's like more than a lifetime's job. But are we in that process?
Yeah. And to your point, are we in that process? There are a number of books that I read early on that were spiritual, that gave me a lot of information about things, for sure. But when I read them again later, I actually had more of an understanding and more of an actual experience reading those things. Like,
yes,
it was a completely different perspective. The words were the same, but like, I really, really understood them in a different way. Yeah. So it's allowing an expansion of what spirituality, mysticism can mean. To me, it's fascinating to read about different mystic practices. And I really admire people that know a lot about different things, and love reading books about it.
Right.
And
the question is, are you doing it?
Yeah.
Right. Like the book is a finger pointing to the moon. Like, if we just look at the finger, we're missing the moon. Right. So the first time you read it, maybe it's just like, okay, there's the finger. But the next time you're like, you know how to look at the moon. Yeah. So they showed you how to look at the moon from here. And you're like, dude, that's awesome. Right. In your soul. But it's still words. It's not the thing. It's pointing to the thing. But yeah, so that's how we transfer our information. Yeah. Like I said last time, like, we're spiritual teachers. We use words like everybody else. We use metaphors. We do, pictures, stories, like everybody else. It's just, where are we pointing? Yeah. And we're pointing beyond the words. And So there's more. There's more, friends. But how about we have kind of a natural break? Okay.
Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hey friends, Susana and I want to remind you that we offer a Mystic Revolution meditation. It's the first Tuesdays at 4:30 Pacific. Please come as our guest. You can see our website for the link. And thank you for playing with us.
Raise your vibration and energize your life with specialized Fibonacci tuning forks that deepen meditations and empower self-healing. Get your vibrational sound tools for personal enhancement at energybodytuners.com.
All right. Welcome back from the break. We're talking more about spiritual bypassing. And Wendy was sharing some thoughts on the difference between like reading something and knowing something intellectually, and then experiencing something in terms of our spiritual journey and our mystic journey. And it started to make me think about ways that, when someone knows a lot about a particular religion, belief system, practice, any rituals, anything like that, I'm always curious. I'm always interested. But I have experienced, and I may have been this way in the beginning too. I don't know, because I've read a lot of things. I'm just going to say I probably was in my less mature days, right? Where I think I know a lot. Or someone
Let's just be clear.
Let's be clear. Or people think they know a lot because they've done study. They've studied it.
Yes.
Because they've read a lot. And I am also going to say there's a difference between study and just reading something, right?
Yes.
And then there's a difference between just reading, studying, and then putting it into practice. Yes. And there are times, and I'll include myself in this, in less evolved or just, earlier stages, where perhaps I read something or I'd been studying something and I started talking about it. Or maybe even, some people parrot things that they've read or things that they've heard people say. that happens. And they do it with such certainty and determinedness. And I'm literally not criticizing anybody about this, because again, I include myself in this. It just comes from a place and time of inexperience. Now, being a little bit older and having some years of experience under my belt, and having really, really, really intentionally taken huge deep dives to heal stuff, there's a difference. There is a difference. And I think sometimes spiritual bypassing can happen when people haven't allowed themselves the time to really use and practice and dive deep with it, deep into it. And it does require time. I mean, one of the things Wendy and I have talked about this, like, this is a process. This is a journey, right? You don't become like an expert reader in overnight.
Nope.
You don't get razor sharp discernment in a weekend.
Although it's so old, I'm sure.
Well, and I'm not going to say you can't, right? And anything is possible, but in general, giving yourself time to own it, to hone it, to like get more precision, to get really own your own faculties, to get to know your own relationship with the divine. It takes time, and it's really different than being able to know all the different deities associated with all the religions. That's an amazing thing to do, by the way, if you want to explore all of that.
Right.
But that's not an indication of how spiritual you are or how much you even understand things. I mean, I know that's an obvious statement, but I've been in situations where my not knowing intellectually about something was sort of meant to this person or group that I didn't get it.
Right. To judge you, basically.
To judge
you
me.
Don't know all these things we know, so you're a fraud or whatever.
Yeah.
You're not it.
You don't know.
You're not the cool people.
I don't know a lot. Maybe I don't know. That's okay. But it doesn't mean that I am not actively on a spiritual path. It doesn't mean anything, really. I just, I might not know about that particular thing.
Right.
But that's kind of a form of a spiritual bypassing. Or it can happen like if you are in a particular practice, right? And stuff is coming up. Maybe it's stuff that's come up for a while, or maybe you're just getting to the lower layers, but someone is like, well, why aren't you using the tools?
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with you? You should know this. We covered this in, last week's class or whatever. And the thing is, we're constantly uncovering, we're constantly running into things. And if we can have people around us, or we can be the people that actively try to, I'm just going to say, keep a balance between, right, the intellectual and the spiritual, I think we can just serve each other better.
Right. And I would say make a distinction between judgment and discernment.
Yeah, make a distinction between judgment and discernment, because I super appreciate when people can help me with my discernment.
Yes.
But if it's through the lens of judgment,
right,
or even through the lens of, when there's sort of an air of, I know they're there. It's okay. I know.
It's frustrating, isn't it? Yeah, we call that competition, but
and it's okay. I mean, again, right? It's all part of the process. Yeah. But and if you've done that, don't worry about it. Like, I'm sure I've done that at times too, not meaning any harm at all, not meaning that at all, but just because I was caught in my own stuff. Or maybe, right, we all have our own things about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we just say, oh, look, there I go.
There I go again.
That's not
Human.
that's not how I want to be. And
Right.
and then we can get turned back into the heart part of it, the embodied part of it, right?
Mhm.
Dropping out of the
The
analyzer and
Mhm.
headspace into our heart space and into our body, and what
Mhm.
makes it real there.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, we have the modeling that judgment is spiritual,
Yeah.
that invalidation is spiritual, that competition, better and worse, is spiritual. And I say that's not my belief.
No, that's not my belief either.
So we all fall into it because humans, humans, and it's really fascinating to see how that stuff does fall away as we go along in our soul journey. It
Yeah.
falls away. It falls away more and more and more. It gets easier not to lead with it. But still, discernment is useful because discernment is spiritual information and soul distinctions that help us in so many ways, right? And so it's not the same though. We're not saying anybody's bad. We're just saying this works for me. That's discernment. This works for me. If you stand here, maybe, on this rock, maybe you'll see the sunrise. It's not about right and wrong, good and bad. Just if you want to, the discernment says you can stand on this rock and maybe you'll see the sunrise. I've seen it several times from here. That's like, I think that's just so important to discernment.
Yeah. Discernment.
Discernment, as opposed to judgment and competition. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm better, you're worse.
Yeah.
I'm worse, you're better. Both, whatever.
Yeah.
So
it also can be I'm worse, you're better, right? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know enough, therefore I can't have an opinion about it. I can't speak about my own experiences because what I think is happening with me isn't as good as what's happened to you, or it isn't quite there. It's interesting then, like, because sometimes I have people come to me, and like, I really want to have a spiritual experience. I really want to feel connected with the divine. And throughout more conversation, they've actually had these experiences, but they've invalidated themselves.
Isn't it great?
Because it didn't look like what other people were talking about, right? It didn't, the whatever, the trendy language around whatever didn't fit whatever was happening with them. So it was, they didn't think they were having it, or it wasn't good enough to share, which is so, and I've been that person too. And
it's nice to not be anymore, huh?
It's nice to not be that anymore. Yeah. We get to include it all. So did you have more that you wanted to say?
I want to tell a story, but first I want to do the conclusion because it fits here, which is we don't want to throw more perfect pictures on anybody, that anyone has to be according to any ideal images. We really, that's not at all what we're saying. That's a human concept. What we're saying is, are we in the game of our soul journey? Or are we not? Are we doing the healing that is in front of us? Are we doing the becoming that is in front of us? Are we unveiling and bringing that into our body, life, and world? Not as judgment, just as, is this practice, process, who I'm being, what I'm doing, is it working?
Yeah.
And am I in that game, or am I in the game of pretending that I'm better and I know it all and whatever? Not to judge, but it's individual of, am I actually having, going deeper into spiritual experience, and am I actually bringing that into my life? That's all.
Yeah. And, I'll just, in my own experience, there were certain points where I hit where I didn't know I could go deeper. We go through phases and times when, things seem to be a little bit stagnant, or it just, really thinking about this all the time isn't really what you want to do. And that's totally okay. And I don't want to give this idea that, like, 24/7, like, all we're doing is thinking about, am I in my soul journey? Am I doing it right? It, like, right, to Wendy's point about perfect pictures. No, that is
Right.
like absolutely not it
That's
at
not it
all.
either.
It's just, I'll give an example. I had something happen the other day that was really hard and intense, and I did some venting about it with my partner. I was in all the,
Yeah.
and then I was done.
Right.
And I pulled myself out of it. And, Wendy and I recently did a meditation on being love, and that was in my mind. And I was like, okay, you get to be mad. And yeah, a lot of people would be like, there's a reason.
Yes.
And how can you shift this to not feel so crappy? How can you shift this to sort of make this whole thing go more easily? How can you shift this to see the people that seem to be the problem in a different light? And right, reality is they're just human beings, and a thing happened, and they made some choices, and things happened, and they certainly weren't meaning any of this to happen by any means, right? And so the shift can happen pretty easily if if that's your intention. And again, if it's not, it doesn't matter. Like,
Whatever.
we all have free will in this. And I think that's another point. We all have free will. So to act like someone knows more or knows less or is better or worse, just it's not even really part of the game. We have free will.
Right. And we all start in a different place, end in a different place, and are playing a different
Exactly.
game. I mean, there's just no way to compare. There's just no
no
way.
way to compare. Yeah.
Yes. And what I want to say about what you said is that if we find that we're pretending, we're hypocrites wearing the mask, if we're pretending in pretense, that's a sign of spiritual bypassing.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if there's some ideal that I have to pretend that I'm at to be okay in myself or with you, that's in the way.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And what I found with this whole, like, emotional processing thing is so cool, because it's like I just go through it faster and faster until, like, the emotion is appropriate to the moment, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And, like, if that's not where you are, that's great. Be where you are. And I can see where I'm going is, like, I'm less, I can, like, see ahead. It's kind of like driving. My dad was a cross country truck driver, and he said it's like playing checkers. You just have to see three moves ahead. Because as opposed to a car where you can start and stop fast, get out of the way fast, trucks can't do that. You have to see what's coming and what each of the cars are doing.
Yeah.
And the trucks, and be ready to not hit them.
Yeah.
Let's be real, right? With a lot of weight, a lot of momentum. And that's what life is like. This is part of what dealing with our emotions is like. It's like eventually we can get out ahead and, like, deal with the stuff. So not everything goes crazy all the time as much. And then when it does, it's just waves on the ocean, ocean waves. It's like not as big a deal as it is to me now, as it was to me 10 years ago. Like, it just gets handled. And still, there are times, in big loss or big frustration, where it's appropriate to have emotions. It's body communication. It's no big deal.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's a really good indicator, though. Like, is over the decades, am I taking care of my body more? Am I are my emotions still carrying me away like they did when I was young? It's an indicator. It's fruit of the practice that we have choices.
And so does everyone else.
And so does everyone else.
Yeah. So, wonderful. I think that's a good place to end for this episode.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for being with us today. And before we say goodbye, let's just close with a little meditation. So go ahead and take a nice deep breath in and out. And let yourself drop into your heart, out of your head space into your heart space. And then allow your core, or your third chakra, your solar plexus, to also get some attention. Maybe you can even tune into the idea of a beautiful ball of light right in that heart and core area. And tune into the idea of your heart as a center of love and being love for yourself and for others. And your solar plexus, your third chakra, is your power center, your place, your core strength, really supporting you in your own heart song, your own beliefs, your own certainty. Allow yourself just to take in anything from our little chat that resonated with you and just leave the rest behind. And allow yourself to be where you are on this journey. You are right where you are supposed to be. Let's take a nice deep breath in and exhale out. Your journey is valid and true and right for you. And with that, we say thank you so much for being here and being part of the conversation. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Mystic Revolution.
Thanks so much for playing with us. Please support Mystic Revolution by liking and sharing our show.
And sign up to get notified when new content is available. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Have a happy always.
Join us for our monthly Mystic Meditation on the first Tuesday of the month at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time.
Click on the link in the description to get more information and join the Mystic Revolution.